Reeves with the general manager for Manhattan Broadcasting Company. We run 5 radio stations, which consist of 7 different signals in Manhattan. K-Man, K-Rock, B1047, C96.3. Last February, I bought Sunday 102.5 and added that to the group. We have 2 FM translators for K-Man. We also run a full digital department. We've got a video crew and a web design team, and we have like a green screen and like all kinds of stuff. So it's more of a media company, and we also have a full sales staff and a production staff and a sports team and a news team, and it's a lot of folks. So in our facility in Manhattan, Kansas, we run probably about 40 employees at a time. We cycle people in and out a lot, which is good because we get a lot of young talent in from Kansas State, and then we send them out to go get bigger, cooler gigs. We've had people in the last 5 years go on to take jobs in Austin and College Station, and Chicago and Colorado Springs and Kansas City and all kinds of cool places. So we figure if they're going to get other cool jobs, that we're doing our job right, because we're kind of a marker where people get a start. The bad part for us is it also means we are constantly hiring, training, things like that. So that is a constant process for us. So we see a lot of resumes. I'm in the process right now of hiring a brand new marketing team. We have a senior sales team, and I'm actually hiring a group of somewhere from 2 to 4 to work underneath them. And that way they will become like kind of like the new creative team. They'll help write commercials, they'll help do a lot of production, they'll help schedule client meetings, things like kind of learn the sales and marketing piece by being a team member under them, and then they'd have the first shot to replace those positions as they come open. So we've never done that before. I'm kind of excited about it. I think it'd be pretty cool. But so I'm seeing, I don't know, it's like a stack of resumes on my desk right now that we've gone through. So I'll give you a quick guess. If you have not gone over it yet, what do you think the average amount of time is a recruiter or an HR person looks at your resume before they decide whether or not they're going to pay close attention, call you, look further into it? Yeah, 6. 6, statistically. So they know what they're looking for. They're going to scan really fast to see if you've got relevant job experience, maybe where you're from, a few other notes or pieces. And if none of those things immediately show up, they're going to kick it out. Here's the bad news for people your age. Google spends even less time. If you're going through and seeing companies that are using like an automated system, they're going to have a system that scans your resume looking for keywords, and it's either going to opt you in or opt you out before you actually even get a human being to look at it. So there's a lot of challenges, but the secret to getting a gig is everything is a resume. And we'll explain that as we go through that this morning. It's different. So I'm about to turn 42 despite the stupid haircut. So when I graduated from college, it was like you had to have this really awesome piece of paper, and that's what you had to get in front of someone. And we spent a crazy amount of time trying to craft the perfect resume and put it on the right kind of paper. Did you want it on gray paper, and what was the weight that it needed to be, and how many pages did it need to? And these are all important things and still important now, but you have so much more to think about now because it's not just a resume. It's a lot of other pieces. So I'm just going to show you my resume. That's it, right? Not super impressive. That's what got me the general manager job 2 years ago. So my resume is pretty plain. It's professional. It's got a little pop of color that's going to make it stand out in a stack of papers. Relevant experience, things like that. But it's a little bit different. The job that I was last applying for was one that I was recruited to apply for more so than just threw my name in a hat and was hoping to get seen. I was also interviewing in front of a board of directors that average age was 70 plus, right? So they didn't want to see something like glitter and perfume or a bunch of crazy colors or stuff like that, right? So that's one of the things we'll talk a little bit about this morning, is making sure the resume that you have is not just one resume. It needs to be able to match who you're applying in front of, who you're interviewing with, things like that. And that all makes a difference. So some quick resume basics. 1, use a template. Super important that you just don't go kind of try to figure it all out on your own, because really there's absolutely no need to whatsoever. If you just Google resume template, it's just picture after picture after picture after picture after picture after picture of cool resumes. The good thing about using a template is that you can move things around. You can have one master resume piece, and then you can rearrange things depending on what kind of job you're applying for, who you're applying in front of and move things around, right? So you don't need to reinvent the wheel now. You don't have to spend a lot of time in Microsoft Word trying to set margins and move things around and making sure the tabs are set right. There's templates that do that for you. I'm sure that's probably the stuff that you're building now. You're probably using a template, whether it's if you're, everybody got to sign a Mac with the brand new school bond, right? Yeah, so Pages has resume templates in it, right? So don't build it yourself and have it look terrible. Use the technology to your advantage. You can download all these templates online. So use a template. Match the job. So, and by match the job, you really need to figure out kind of the language that the people use that you're applying for. If you're applying for a graphic design job, this is a terrible resume. Right? It should probably have a lot of cool color in it, or it should have some sort of design elements that shows off your creativity. If you're applying to be an architect, it's going to look different than if you're applying to be a video guy. If you're a sports guy, it might look different. I mean, it all really depends on what kind of job you would like to get, and you need to match that. The other thing you can do is study the company that you're applying for, read their website. It'll give you an idea of what their corporate language is, what their vibe is, whether or not they're super serious, whether or not they like to have fun, whether or not they consider themselves a local company or a giant corporation, and you need to try to match the language in your resume to the way that they speak on their website. Because then they'll feel like you're talking to them in the way that they like to talk. Companies spend a whole lot of money in marketing dollars trying to figure out what the voice of their company is going to be, whether it's on their social media or on their websites and things like that. So you can learn a lot about how they want to talk by searching that kind of stuff out and making sure you apply it to what you're doing as well. Important stuff first. So one of the things with only having a few seconds to look at a resume, a lot of people kind of fall into a little bit of trouble where they just put everything all on a list, chronological, of what they've done. The cheat there is to change that experience to relevant experience and putting the things that are most important to the job you're applying for first. Put it up to the top. People are less worried about dates and more worried about the experience you have. I've always found that if you allow that stuff to jump to the top, it makes more sense. A little statement up top, that's all the kind of stuff that also show up in your cover letter, which to me, as a guy who hires, is more important than your resume as well. Your cover letter, I can tell who you are, how you write, a lot more things than the resume tells you anyway, but get that important stuff to the top. Okay? The other thing I don't need you to tell me is that your list of skills includes things that everyone at this point should know, like I know how to run Microsoft Word, I can use Excel. It's like, yeah, thanks. So skip all of that stuff. That is not important. I'm assuming if you turned in a digital resume via Indeed or something like that, you know how to use a computer. You don't have to tell me that. So skip a lot of that stuff. Use it for more relevant experience. I'd rather know that you volunteer for something, or you're a member of your chamber, or your National Honor Society, or you're playing on football teams. That's way more important. Soft skills are important. The fact that you know how to use Photoshop, unless it applies directly to the job, not important. Okay? Talk like a pro. Without sounding mean, like that's tough at your age, all right, to talk like a professional. You don't have the experience in the job market or in the field that you want to go in to talk the way that they talk. But again, that's a research component. But talk like a pro also means make sure that the language that you use sounds professional and adult, things like that. But also talk like a pro. Professionals also don't use giant, huge words to sound important. That's a resume trick. Like I see right through that immediately. If you've gone into the thesaurus and tried to find the largest words possible to jam into your resume. If you worked with the company, you increased their Twitter followers by 1,000, just put that in there. Don't put some multi-level, whatever, multi-pronged approach to social media platforms, including Twitter, to quadruple, but just put that you increased their Twitter followers by 1,000. I'll be happy with you. That's how professionals talk in meetings. Brag but don't lie. You want to sound cool, man, right? Companies want to hire cool people. Want to hire people that are pretty confident, feel good about themselves, but don't lie. That stuff always comes back now. You cannot hide that. And important folks have gotten hung up on resumes where they've tweaked it just a little bit too far, and they got in trouble for it. So always talk well about yourself, but never go too far. And I think the most important thing is to prove you're likable. So if you look at a company like Bank of the Flint Hills, who sponsored that this morning, they're really cool, quirky bank. Their social media is really awesome. They do cool Christmas videos, and they've got a bank branch now with a coffee shop in it. They're a pretty likable group. Proving yourself likable is important if you want to get hired with people like that. People that have taken the time to establish a really cool culture want to keep it, because it takes a long time to make one. So therefore, they do not want to invite pirates onto the boat. They're going to cause a problem. So proving you're likable is throwing in things in your resume that I think are important. So like I've got the Chamber of Commerce and that Cons United Way, Community Foundation, Oz Museum, things that are community involved. If there's anything that you had to get elected to, if there's anything people voted on you to be part of, that's all important. It proves that you're likable. And then we'll also get to a little bit of a likable part here in a second. So those are just a few keys. Template, match the job, important stuff first, talk like a pro, brag but no lie, and prove you're likable. Proving you're likable now for you is different than what it used to be. And it's because everything is a resume. Even the things that you think have nothing to do with getting a job have everything to do with getting a job now. So that's my resume, right? In an old 1994 sense. I started applying for jobs, which is it's a while. Like how old is 1994 sound? You guys really old? Doesn't seem that long ago to me. No? So how about this? What is this? LinkedIn? Is anybody on LinkedIn? Is that just an old guy thing? Few? Right? So is this also a resume? So if my LinkedIn profile isn't finished, or I'm using janky language on there, or it looks like I started my LinkedIn and didn't finish it, is that part of maybe what people might look at to think about you a little bit? So having one that's halfway done, is that worse than having one maybe that doesn't exist at all? Yeah. So if you're going to do stuff like that, do it, because anyone who's on LinkedIn can search you, and they will.
I searched Corey last night.
And I'll know because I can actually log into my LinkedIn and it shows me who's looked at my profile. Right? So LinkedIn also shows the people that I know. Are the people that I know and associate with also my resume? 100% yes. How about that? What's that? Facebook page. Does this tell people about me? Does it tell them about my personality? Does it tell them about things that I think are important? Does it tell them about my involvement in the community? Does it tell them if I'm a negative jerk who complains about things all the time? Is that my resume? If it's searchable, it is. Oh, what's that?
MySpace.
I don't have MySpace anymore. I deleted that. That was a rock morning show, Corey, from a long time ago. So the MySpace profile doesn't exist. Twitter. What's everyone's favorite thing to do on Twitter? Complain. Tweet. Complain. Twitter is somehow built to complain about movies, the service that you received at restaurants, sometimes who's coaching the basketball team. I don't know. These are the things that people complain about. Right? So the number one thing that people are able to do on Twitter. Is that my resume? Can it tell people if I'm generally a positive person or if I'm a negative person who likes to complain about things? Can I alienate people potentially from even interviewing me because of some of the things that I say or some of the groups that I retweet? Yep. So as Manhattan Broadcasting Company, do we have business owners that we associate with that are both conservative and liberal? Yep. Does their money clear the same? Yep. Is it important for me to be friends with all of them? Yep. And even when I'm not interviewing for a job, I'm interviewing for my clients every day. Everything is a resume. How about that? Insta. Boom. Dropped a couple Instas from courtside seats in K-State KU game. I had really good seats to see them hit like 6 out of their first 7 threes. That was gross. Can this paint a picture of the things that I think are cool or important? Yeah. How about my Snapchat if that profile's public? Yeah. What if you post stuff on your story that anyone can see as opposed to stuff you send just directly to your friends? Yep. You want to give me a percentage of stuff that I search, of all the new hires that I'm reviewing for our new marketing job? How many people do you think I've searched their social media? All of them. All of them. Can that tell me probably more than just their paper resume that they've workshopped and spent a whole bunch of time polishing and sending in? Which one do you think I personally believe is the more accurate picture of who they are?
Social media.
All this. Right, so everything's a resume. This is going to be your biggest resume moving forward. Google. What shows up when they Google you? I'll Google everybody who sends in a resume too. Good news for me, it shows up Twitter, bang, LinkedIn. And then management change in Manhattan Broadcasting, that's all right. It's like my top 5 are all right. I've never been proven guilty of anything, so nothing's really getting me in trouble. Not for lack of trying when I was young. But it's a different time. So I went to college and went to high school at a time when this stuff was not locked. You haven't lived a day where social media wasn't a thing. Your life lives on the internet, will forever. It's just a thing. And that's how people kind of form their opinion of all of you. You have to think of it as all one piece. Big picture, right? It's not just the resume. It's what image do you want to put forth on your social media? Are you being selective about who shows up on your friends list? That's one of the first things I see when I scan your social media is the friends that we have in common. If it shows that we have a whole lot of friends in common, and it's a local business, it's probably going to bias you in a good way in my direction. People show up there right away that I don't like, it's going to unfortunately bias me the other direction. That's not fair, but that's what's happening. So, it used to be just a resume and cover letter, and now everything else can ruin a good resume and cover letter. We've excluded people from our job hunt that had a great resume and relevant experience just in the last week. Their Facebook page, they did mostly negative complaining, and my biggest pet peeve of all time is they were complaining about the job that they currently have. And that Facebook post was posted at 2:30 in the afternoon, which means they were what? Complaining about work at work. You were using my Wi-Fi to complain. I don't need you on the team. We spent a lot of time driving the boat at Manhattan Broadcasting, and there's 3 types of people. There's people that row the boat, people that are on for the ride, and then there are pirates. And pirates who are negative will try to recruit other people to be pirates. And most businesses are trying to figure out a way to not have to deal with the pirates. You spend way too much time on the horrible employees and not enough time with your good people, and people are trying to change that paradigm. And their idea is now we're just going to kick the pirates off the boat, and if at all chance, we're going to try not to let them on in the first place. So all this stuff is a way that we use to kind of block that. So you have to think big picture. All of it works together. What kind of image do you want people to have? How do you want them to look at you? What do they want you to think? Do you want them to think of you as a positive person? Do they want you to think of you as a creative person? Do you want to be a community involved person? You can paint that whole picture yourself, but you have to be intentional about it. You have to think about it. You have to think about who can post other stuff on your Facebook wall and who's tagging you in pictures and where you're going to be and what you're doing, and you got to go back and you got to kind of police that stuff. And if you're not doing it now, you're already behind. It's all your resume. So I can give you all the cool words and all the fancy pieces to put on all your resume, and if you don't do the other stuff, it won't matter. It'll just be harder. You'll have to prove yourself twice as hard in that interview. And then we get out of an interview, if you impress me and I went and I forgot to do it, I'm also probably going to give you a couple random tasks. So one of the smartest things I ever saw anybody do in an interview is I usually hit someone up. When you leave the first interview, I will almost always ask you to send me an email with some availability for next week, and we'll set up the second interview. Why? Right, I have given you a task. Can you execute one thing? Just one. And if you don't send me that interview within 24 hours, you are what? Out. Unless you better be really, really, really good. Really good. So one of the smartest things I ever saw was we had a girl leave. She got hired for a marketing position eventually. She left. She posted on her Facebook page what a great interview she just had, how excited she was about the future, and she tagged me. Was that a whole lot smarter than just sending me an email? She sent the email too. Was that pretty smart? And she instantly requested me on LinkedIn, followed me on Twitter, checked all of our company pages, liked K-Rock, Sunny 102.5, K-Man, like, and also we see all of it. I see it all instantly. All that stuff, notifications, boom, she was going through all of our social media. Top of the list, wasn't just a resume. Be smart. I can talk all day. What questions do you have?
When you check somebody's social media, how far back do you go?
How far back will your social media profile let me go? I don't hold stuff against people forever, and I don't want it to mean like I'm like policing your social media for every single thing you've ever done. That's crazy. It's kind of stalker-like. So I usually get a pretty good idea just by scrolling through a few pictures and posts for a week or two. So here's the thing: people that are habitually negative, I don't have to look very far. You're killing yourself, man, because if you're that kind of person on social media, you're probably doing it all the time. So you don't have to look very deep. So it becomes pretty evident pretty quick. What else? Yeah.
What's a good thing on like the first sentence on your resume to like catch someone like the
Profile stuff. You really want to target that towards whatever the gig is. So, what's going to get my attention at a radio or marketing spot if somebody's listing like relevant marketing radio experience, like mine says like 20-year industry vet, but mine also focuses on, let me just bring up. So, my profile says the best thing about radio is it changes every day. The toughest thing about radio is that it changes every day. 20 plus years experience finding creative ways to keep listeners entertained, clients and advertisers energized with creative solutions where both can win. Radio keeps me connected to community in ways that can truly make a difference for local nonprofits to continue to do great work for me. How many numbers are in there? 1, how much experience I have. How many kind of crazy claims, guarantees, but I'm trying to prove that I have experience that's relevant, that I'm in it for the listener and the advertiser, and also bigger than anything, it gives me a chance to make a difference in my local community. I've like checked all the major boxes. So that kind of stuff is good. Value statement should kind of tell a little bit about who you are, what you believe in. Good question.
Is it okay for that to be some of the same stuff that's in your cover letter?
Yep.
Or should you let your cover letter be?
No. So here's a good marketing tip. Bank of the Flint Hills was just in here. I write their commercials. If you listen to their commercials, 30 seconds, I will say their name 3 times. Right? Because it's the repetition that gets it over. Don't worry about repeating it. I mean, I wouldn't put the same thing every single blurb, but yeah, put the same thing in there. You don't know which one they're going to read either. Somebody might read the cover letter, some people might flip directly to the resume, so put it in both, yeah, it's not a problem. What else? Police your pictures and change your privacy settings. Stuff like that is a big deal. People probably know way too much about you, and it's stuff that they probably don't need to know. Right? Like that's almost scary to me. It lets me know you're a little bit reckless if I can look at your Facebook profile and absolutely everything is open for me to see. Makes me wonder how safe you're going to be with company information.
What I noticed a lot of students struggling with is transferring your second point, which is tailoring to what they posted on a job description. What are some things you might give them on how to look at a job description and then translate that into these are the boxes you just said tip these boxes.
Yeah. So on a hiring job description, typically they're going to put their most important stuff first. Like a lot of the You know, if I put like preferred 4 years experience like that, that's all this is me attempting to try to exclude you from even sending the resume in the first place. Okay? That doesn't mean that I won't read your resume once it gets in. Does that make sense? Like I put that stuff in there to try to shrink the pool of folks, fewer people that go through. So don't think too far into that. But a lot of people are putting value statements of their company now within the job description that we're a dynamic, creative company. Like they're trying to recruit a specific kind of person. So if they put something in there about how they're a dynamic, creative, blah, blah, I mean, you need to pull those words or pull those things and dump that stuff in there. That most job descriptions make an attempt now to describe the company because they know that even their job descriptions is recruiting and marketing for their company, right? So if we, like ours, we've talked about like high-speed work environment and things like that. So if you could do, like even then if, one of the guys that just got an interview has no marketing experience. He was a banquet server, but his resume talked about how he handled multiple clients, customer service, set meetings, like that's applicable things that he's going to have to do in a marketing job, but it's not marketing experience. But he went out of his way to prove that he could handle a lot of things at once, that he was comfortable talking to people, but that's just how he worded his job description in his resume, but he was not a marketer at all. But he got through. So my buddy Andy Crowell, he interviewed for, he's a marketing director for K-Rock now. He worked at Arby's and had never been on the radio a day in his life. But, so for a rock radio station, we're hiring an interesting kind of person, right? I need you to sound like you don't care, but I need you to care a lot because you actually have to work a lot. It's harder than anything. But Andy Crowell's tagline on his resume was, "I entertain tens of people every day in the Arby's drive-thru." He kind of jumped right to the top of the interview file just because I wanted to meet him. But he doesn't have any radio experience, but he proved that he's funny. He proves that he kind of cares, and he's kind of quirky, right, for that gig. That works. So don't be afraid to show your personality through and stuff like that. That was really funny. That was one of my favorites. And then I had one where the resume was terrible, but it was like 3 paragraphs of how much the person listened to radio, fell in love, grew up listening to the Breakfast Club morning show on T95 in Wichita, Kansas when they were a kid, blah, 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 like this whole thing. And I was like, great, well, you obviously love the business, so come on in.
Are there any other red flags that you look for in a resume other than like the obvious?
Spelling and grammar. Yeah. Spelling and grammar. And I'll check your email when you send that to me too.
On like a cover letter, like we did in class, like some students had bullets, and I was wondering if like that is like a yay or a nay, or does
On
that
the cover letter, to bullet it,
Yeah.
I don't
like
think
certain-
that matters to me. I'm way less about format and much more on match the content, improve the care. Yeah.
Corey, do you have an opinion on a 1-page versus a 2-page resume?
No. So they used to tell you like what, 1 page for every 10 years of job experience. That seems just like such a random thing. So what if you have one job for 10 years, right? It's like, so I don't know. Just as long as it's relevant. I quit reading your resume when it gets boring. Maybe that's just applying rules of radio to it. I tell people that talking too long or too short isn't a thing. I quit listening to you when you get boring, and for some people that's hours, and for some people that's seconds. So I think your resume is the same as long as it's relevant and kind of cool. Like I'll keep reading if it's cool stuff on there. Don't force yourself to put like every single thing you've ever done ever if all you're doing is just filling up lines just to fill up lines. And don't put references upon request. That makes me angry. That's really arrogant. Either put them on there or don't. Most likely I'm going to ask you for them anyway, but references upon request is like, man, why would you say that? That's super rude. Well, if you ask me, I will provide for you my references. No kidding, you will. Otherwise, I'm not going to hire you. Thanks. We're the one writing the checks over here, so don't put that stuff down there. That's rude. half of the resumes I get say references. Now's the time when I request your references. Don't worry, I already know where you worked. I'm going to call them anyway. And probably not the people that you put on the list. I'm going to talk to your actual boss. Not your friends. So, what else? All good questions. It's weird to get started on stuff like that. It's weird. So it's tough as a high school senior. I remember that, like, writing a resume was hard. And I'm telling you, you're already writing your resume. You just don't know it. It's all the content that you already have online. That you've already studied your resume, whether you've thought about it or not. I'm serious. People will absolutely 100% check. Believe that.
Should you be very strategic with what you post on Instagram?
Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah.
everything needs to be strategically planned.
Okay, so full disclosure, most of the pictures don't exist. So in college, I played in a heavy metal rock band, had a stupid haircut. I certainly wouldn't have been elected to the Chamber of Commerce, like all this stuff, right? Pictures of that don't exist. Or for the most part they do, but they're on actual photographs, and I have them in a box. So, it all depends on what you want people to think of you. Most of my Facebook posts, Twitter posts, stuff like that is about the things that are the main parts of what people would consider my job. I'm pretty quirky, I like technology, I have stupid shoes, I'm kind of a hipster who drinks coffee and craft beer, which is fine because I'm almost double the drinking age. So I post stuff like that all the time. Like if you see my stuff, it's usually Star Wars or Pink Floyd or having a cup of coffee, or here I'm out with my buddies. Conveniently, most of the time when I'm out with my buddies, it's at a community event or a basketball game or a football game. So that's all by design. That's what I want people to think of me when they think of me. I have bad days and horrible stuff. And, my kids aren't perfect and things like that. I don't post that stuff. I don't complain about it online. I also have a whole lot of really deep-seated political and religious beliefs, and I think that stuff should be handled analog. Right? I'll sit down with you and have a cup of coffee with you and talk about that stuff. I'm not going to rant about it online because all it's going to do is piss off half the population. It's stupid. Guess how many people care? Correct answer is none. Right? When was the last time you really changed your opinion on something because someone ranted about it on social media? I'm going to guess probably never. Right? You're doing that for your own self-gratification, which is fine. And it's all got a role, but just be careful because people will weigh that against you. And they'll weigh it against you without context because they don't know you. So they'll make grand sweeping observations after a 40-character sentence. It's pretty silly. Yeah.
Because you're cool, I'm going to use you to say something that I want to say.
Awesome.
Okay. Would you suggest for senior interview day that students find a similar job that they want, to use that job posting to build their cover letter and resume?
100%. Yeah. And ask people who you think are clever and awesome and things like that. Here's the thing, I'll tell you the truth. Creative people like to be creative and they like you to think that they're creative. Okay? Like the creative, energetic people all have an ego. And what's our favorite thing? Hey man, can I ask you a question? Yeah, yes, because now I get to talk for a while. Awesome. They will help. They'll help write, they'll help edit. People that are good at that kind of stuff like to do it. They like to help you do it. So seek them out. The other thing that people that are in an industry that's where they're trying to grow, like I need people like you excited about the fact that we have 7 radio stations and radio still reaches 93% of the population, and the fact that you only put it on your Spotify playlist because you heard it on the radio first, and things like I need you excited about the future of my business. Banks need people who are young and exciting. School districts want young, energetic teachers that are into technology, who are ready to develop new curriculum, okay? They want you to be excited about the future of their industry. They will help you get good at it. They will help you write a resume that will help you get a job if you just put in the time and the effort. It's really just ask. You'd be amazed what you can get if you just ask.
You said not to put political or religious opinions. What if you...
I said not to complain about political or religious opinions.
Okay. I was gonna say, there's been a couple times where I've posted, or I've shared quotes from, like religious singers or
No,
like a Bible verse.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not
Okay.
sort of people that continuously do nothing but rant and rant and rant and rant and rant and rant. Anything that's, I mean, you can make a positive or negative about anything. It's just be careful, you know? Yeah.
One, do you ask in an interview a question like, where do you see yourself 5 or 10 years in the future? And if so, what do you like to hear as an answer to that? And
Hear? Like, that's always the right answer? If someone says, like, if they're in my building and I usually don't, because that's like, they should be picturing themselves working for me. Although I've occasionally asked that, because if they do say, well, 10 years from now, I'd like to own a ranch and blah, 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 I'm like, awesome. The correct answer should be, I envision myself as the senior sales manager for Manhattan Broadcasting. I plan to get this job and then move up to the other job. So that's a trick. I don't know. That probably tells me, it might tell me something about you for if you're young, about like kind of where you see yourself. Like, so I probably wouldn't ask that in my job. But I think the correct answer is always like, say you're going to get a few ego points. Or something, where do you envision yourself in 5 years? You're like, well, I don't know. What are my advancement opportunities here? Because I see myself in this company.
And the second question, what do you like to hear as question, if you were to say, what questions do you have for me?
Okay, so that is always a thing that gets asked at the end of every interview. And the worst answer is, no, I think we're good. Which you would be surprised how many times you get. The question you never ask right away is about money or vacation time. Ever. You should research the company, and you should ask a few smart questions that prove that you've done some research about the company. And you do that by the way you frame the question. Where if the first thing you would throw out to be like, well, I saw on your website that you just opened a branch in White City, or you just introduced a new this, or you just brought in a new radio show, or I didn't know that you did digital marketing, right? I mean, that proves that you've done a little bit of research. So frame it around something that proves that you put in a little bit of time. So frame that question with, I saw on your social media account, or I saw on your website, or things like that. That lets me know that you've at least done a little bit of background. You didn't just roll into the interview dry. And that's going to be good. So, but always have some sort of question or two kind of in the bag, usually about things that they're planning to do for the future. Or one of my favorite things that people ask, proves that they're thinking about the job a little bit, is when you ask, so what does a normal day look like? Like, how does it start? Like, because then it's good for you too, because then they're going to explain to you like what time people show up, when the meetings are, kind of what's expected, things like that. That's a smart question.
Guys, I hate to say it, but it's a good time. So, I need you to drive slowly back to school, park well. Slowly back to park well in the parking lot.